So this should be coming out on my birthday, and as such, I decided to review one of my favorite episodes, which also happens to have a literal crap ton of references to early Hollywood comedy, especially the Three Stooges.
I'm Mr. Shackelford's attorney, Rusty Shackelford. My client pleads insanity.
My name is Dotrieve, Bill, and I am also insane.
Oh.
Hey folks, welcome to Squirrel Tactics. Like, subscribe, check out the Patreon, let's do this.
A firefighting we will go. The title is a play on the Three Stooges short, A Plumbing We Will Go, and this is just the first of many Three Stooges references in this episode. Something else that sets this episode apart is that it uses the Rashomon storytelling device. For those unaware, Rashomon was a Japanese film made by Akira Kurosawa, where four characters each give their different versions of an event. The same we see with the guys explaining how the fire burned down. Well, we'll get to that part. And in true Rashomon fashion, we start off with the guys getting questioned by Arlen's fire chief, voiced by Barry Corbin, by the way, who is none too happy about what went down, which apparently beats all he's ever seen.
You guys are in big trouble. This is the worst offense I've seen in my 14 years as chief fire investigator.
The guys are, well, the guys, and they act accordingly with Bill and Dale standing out with their own personal idiocies. Not idiosyncrasies, idiocies.
Dotrieve, William Fontaine de la Tour, Sergeant Barber, United States,
Numbskull, shut up.
Well, gotta go.
Sit down.
The chief makes it clear that no one is going anywhere anytime soon, or at least until he finds out who's responsible. And we take things back to the beginning with the guys drinking beer in the alley, also known as light yard work.
Nobody's going anywhere until I find out how this happened. Now, according to Heck Dorland's statement, you were standing out behind your houses doing some light yard work.
The original Heck Dorland shows up with Bill in tow because apparently Bill was able to become a volunteer firefighter, though the method of how he came into that position doesn't give me the best feeling when it comes to the quality of firefighters that Arlen has. But hey, the main guys went on strike for higher pay and better benefits, so Arlen gets what Arlen gets.
I'm a fireman. Heck came by the base looking for volunteers. I was the only one the base commander let go.
Heck asked the guys if they're interested, and of course they are. These guys have dreamed of being firefighters since they were kids. Yeah, they're gonna jump at the chance to do it for real.
Now, Heck, assuming I pass the required courses and notify my insurance company in writing, will I get to drive the fire truck?
You got any speeding tickets?
No, sir.
I do.
Hank excitedly informs his family about becoming a volunteer firefighter, and Luann mentions that she could be a firefighter, with Peggy telling Hank that he should make Luann a firefighter, but Hank disagrees because, well, she's Luann, but he uses the she's not strong enough reasoning, to which Peggy has a response.
Then she would do a fireperson's carry, formerly known as a fireman's carry.
What's that?
It allows a woman to lift a man's weight through a scientific principle that I like to call leverage.
A fireman's carry, or firefighter's carry, if that's the parlance you choose, is actually not the preferred way for a firefighter to move a person. The current preferred way is to drag them by their shoulders. And nowadays, you're more likely to see it as a setup for a Samoan drop than anything else. Let's see Peggy show us how it's done.
Oh, yeah! Oh, no!
Well, she got him up, which she should have been able to do more easily. We've seen in the past that Peggy is not weak. She may have many flaws, but lack of strength is not one of them.
Wake up, Hank. We're being burgled.
Huh? You go check on Bobby. I'll see what's going on.
So it is odd that they'd have her pull her groin, lifting Bobby up, unless it was due to her not limbering up first. Also, on the whole Luann not being physically able to be a firefighter thing, she's probably a better fit than Bill or Dale. Bill would probably have a heart attack if he tried to save someone, and Dale, well, he kind of has a history of cowardice in such situations, so he'd probably just run away to save himself, and if he didn't, his prolonged heavy smoking habit would become a hindrance. Not to mention the fact that he's not the strongest guy in the world.
Peggy, the man benches 35 pounds.
We see an example of what I'm talking about when the guys are training and Heck makes the wise decision of putting Dale at the end in charge of the nozzle, which doesn't turn out well because, well, Dale benches 35 pounds.
Come on, Dale, straighten it out. Watch where you're aiming.
After that failure, they decide it's time to show the guys the jaws of life, which, fun fact, there are 3 types of: cutters, splitters, and combos. Cutters are made to cut, splitters are made to open gaps, and combos are cracker or pretzel-based treats that look like a cat's butthole. Obviously, the combo version is made to cut and split, and I'm pretty sure that's the type they're showing off here.
Jaws of life, a.k.a. the Jaws. Victims trapped in a car, this baby will peel it like an orange.
Yeah, let's see what it does with a real orange.
Later, they're all hanging out in the fire station, but Hank being Hank, he has to stay busy. This time by sharpening the fire axes, which, based off my research, fire axes aren't meant to cut, but rather to smash, not that kind of smash. So they're actually meant to be dull.
Heck, I thought I'd go ahead and sharpen all the axes.
Hank's a lumberjack and he's okay.
The big guy laughing there is Beef. We've mentioned him before in our review of Born Again on the 4th of July. And yes, that was Dale making a Monty Python reference.
He's a lumberjack and he's okay. He sleeps all night and he works all day.
Hank is then introduced to Chet Elderson, who is not a fan of Hank, but, fun fact, he's voiced by old Jed Clampett himself, Buddy Ebsen. Though, sad fact, this was Ebsen's final role before his death.
Ain't you the idiot what blew up the Megalomart? I was supposed to take my vacation that week. Idiot.
Actually, sir, the idiot you're thinking of was named Buckley.
Yeah.
We're also introduced to Chet Elderson's Alamo beer sign, which is kept unplugged due to its bad wiring. Go ahead and put a pin in that because we're going to come back to it later. And we get to see why you may not want to be the person to plug that sign in.
Who unplugged my sign?
Chet, you know you can't plug it in. It don't work right.
I'll get it for you.
Later on, Hank and Bobby run preparedness drills because Hank is actually taking the whole firefighter thing seriously. Though he and Bobby may not exactly be on the same page here.
How'd I do, Bobby?
Okay, go!
Oh, God.
Peggy gets home from the grocery store and she's visibly limping, because she hurt herself. But Peggy being Peggy, she has to deny any weakness and refuse any help, even going so far as to make a less than accurate statement.
Well, maybe it has something to do with when you pulled your groin picking me up.
Well, honey, I don't think that could be true, since ladies do not have groins.
Hank and the guys are out driving in the fire truck, not sure why, possibly just for shits and giggles. And Hank tries to quiz the other guys because, again, he's actually taking this seriously. Though there's something else that Dale has on his mind, and it ain't firefighting.
The cylinder gauge should be within how many PSI of the regulator gauge? Anyone?
I am protesting the results of last night's ping pong tournament. Boomhauer cannot play the ball off of Bill's head.
No, we all agreed my head's in play.
They come across Bobby, Joseph, and a bunch of other kids playing football, and Joseph asks them to wash them off with the fire hose. Which, spraying someone with a fire hose is a terrible idea, unless you're on a children's TV show.
You get to drink from the fire hose!
Hank vetoes the whole spraying children with a fire hose thing. Good idea there, Hank. But Dooley and Clark Peters use reverse psychology to play Hank like fiddle.
I don't know how to open the hydrant.
Because they're volunteers. Son, You're about to get very, very wet.
This then leads to a comedy of errors, where Dale strips the bolt on top of the hydrant, Hank opens it up anyway, but does so before Bill has a chance to secure the hose, so water starts shooting out everywhere. Hank can't shut it back off because, the stripped bolt, and for some reason, Boomhauer thinks it's a bright idea to just cut the top off the hydrant using the jaws of life.
Quit it, knucklehead! The jaws ain't for that!
Yeah, that's about as Three Stooges as you can get. Hank even calls Boomhauer a knucklehead, something that Moe often did. And to prove my point from earlier, notice that Dale runs away. We find out later that the chief was unaware that the guys were the ones responsible for the fire hydrant, and that they had received an anonymous call claiming that the culprits were just a bunch of kids. But we find out pretty quick exactly who made that anonymous phone call, plus we get ourselves a good old-fashioned Stooges head knocking.
Bunch of kids, I gave you names. Hill, Bobby, Gribble, Joseph.
It was
Dale who took them in jaws of light.
Hey!
Oh, God.
Yeah, Dale tried to blame his own son for his own screw-up. Way to go, Dale. Sounds about right, unfortunately. And just to go one step further to show that Dale isn't exactly the sharpest marble in the bag, we see him try yet again to plug that damn Alamo beer sign in, even though it shocked the crap out of him the last time. And when Hank tries to stop him, well, we get this.
Plug in my Alamo sign, will you?
Better not, Dale. Remember, it doesn't work right.
B-A Bay, B-E-B, B-I Bicky Bye, B-O Bo, Bicky Bye Bo.
I said not to.
B-U Boo.
Hey,
That is known as swinging the alphabet, and if you guessed it was another Three Stooges reference, you're correct. It comes from violent is the word for curly.
B-A Bay, B-E-B, B-I Bicky Bye, B-O Bo, Bicky Bye Bo, B-U Boo, Bicky Bye Bo Boo.
We also get another classic comedy reference from Boomhauer after Bill does what Bill does, which is screw up something, this time a simple frisbee throw.
I bet we could use this lid as a frisbee. Catch, Hank. Hey.
What the dang on that beer, man? What do you think you're doing? I mean, old dang old fatty belt buckle, man.
Yep, a reference to Roscoe Fatty Arbuckle. So many vaudeville references, and as y'all could probably tell, I like old school vaudeville. It's part of why I'm a wrestling fan. Boomhauer accidentally breaks a window right as Heck Dorland was walking in, and Dale complains to him, claiming that he can't work with Hank. This leads to Heck telling them that either they can get along or he'll replace them, which everyone other than Boomhauer seems shocked by. Meanwhile, Peggy still refuses to admit to Hank that she pulled her groin muscle picking up Bobby. And I don't really understand her thinking here. I doubt she'd get an I told you so if she was honest.
Why don't you just admit to him that you hurt yourself picking up Bobby?
Oh, honey, you've never been married.
When Hank gets back to the station carrying a Frito pie that Peggy had made for them to eat, the place is a mess, with Boomhauer reading a magazine while Bill and Dale play volleyball using a fire hose as a net. Something that Hank is not happy about, and he puts a stop to, though him doing this leaves the winner between the two in question.
Hey, Dale, I was ahead when Hank ruined our game, so I win, right?
Wrong. You automatically lose. But I'll go double or nothing on the ping pong court.
All right.
Okay.
Hank goes to bed while Dale and Bill settle their game, switching to ping pong, and Boomhauer warms up that Frito pie. I'd like to add that there should be way more cheese on there, like you can't see anything beyond the top layer of cheese amount of cheese. And not just any cheese, Cabot cheese. That's right, they don't pay me to say it, it's just damn good cheese. Anywho, when Hank comes down to get the guys to stop playing and go to bed, Bill takes things a little too far, and I do believe that he deserves any level of ass kicking that he has coming.
Give me the ball, damn it. There.
Oh.
There.
Bill runs for his life, hoping to God that he's faster scared than Hank is angry. And Dale decides to take his own shot in retaliation for the destroyed ball by throwing the just out of the oven Frito pie at Hank, who easily sees it coming, ducks out of the way, and it ends up burning Bill's face. And I'm not a fan of wasted Frito pie, but yeah, Bill deserved that. Bill tries to throw it back into Dale's face, but Dale uses the face shield on his helmet to block it. Which, yeah, that's a pretty smooth move there on his part, I gotta say.
My face hurts.
And it'll match your ass when I'm done kicking it.
Hank chases Bill upstairs, running into a wall on the way, where Bill ends up getting stuck while trying to slide down the fire pole, and Hank does the smart thing by just leaving him there and going back to bed.
No fire, Hank. I'm stuck.
Yeah!
Dale and Boomhauer start the ping pong gang back up using the busted ball, but when Hank comes down to stop them, Heck Dorland shows up with some bad news, and Bill proves yet again just how terrible his timing really can be.
Chet Elderson died. Natural causes.
Oh, man, what a shame. Bummer, man.
Very sad.
Oh, for crying out loud.
So we head over to Chet Elderson's funeral, where for some odd reason, Hank, Bill, Dale, and Boomhauer are the only pallbearers carrying his casket. Which is odd for a few reasons. First, there are typically 6 or 8 pallbearers, not 4. And second, why pick them to do it? They barely knew Chet Elderson. Why aren't any of the regular firefighters doing their duty here? Are they on strike from funerals too? Anywho, Hank's glasses keep slipping off because they're broken. Thanks a lot, Bill. And they're having a hard time carrying the casket because Dale refuses to touch it, let alone carry his end of the weight, claiming that it's bad luck. And that's how this happened, where the guys ended up in the grave and Chet Elderson's corpse ended up without pants. They continue fighting back at the firehouse, but Bill puts an end to it by mentioning that they should be honoring Chet Elderson, giving Dale the idea of plugging in that damn Alamo beer sign. As he and Hank are arguing over plugging in the sign, the alarm goes off, alerting the guys to their first call, a fire at Goober Smooches.
Goober Smooches. It might not sound like a family place, but it is.
Which they rush to, with Dale leaving the Alamo sign plugged in. This is important. They get to the fire, which Heck has already put out with a fire extinguisher, but then they all get a page in a shock when they see that the fire is at their fire station. Yep, they burned down their own fire station, and the chief ain't happy.
Where do you want us, Chief?
Back in the grave with Chet Elderson.
This brings us back to where we started, with the fire chief wanting to know what happened and the guys arguing over who was responsible, with Dale trying to blame anybody he can, and remember, it was his fault.
Hank did it. Bill did it too. I begged him not to.
God, you chicken-necked ass! I'll kill you!
And then we get to the part of the episode that most people remember, where the chief wants to hear each of the guys' sides of the story, starting with Dale, and I love how each retelling gives us a look into each character and how they view themselves and others. So Dale's version, where he's rather buff I might say, has Dale checking the smoke detectors while Bill gorged himself on French bread pizza. Hank was a drill sergeant barking orders, and Boomhauer spent all his time under a tanning lamp. Oh, and Dale has luxurious hair in this version. He ends up blaming Boomhauer, who knocked over the tanning lamp when the alarm went off, while also conveniently leaving something out.
I raced for the fire truck with lightning speed.
Since Boomhauer was blamed, it became his turn to tell his story, and I gotta say, his is by far my favorite of the versions, where all the guys are speaking like Boomhauer, and Boomhauer speaks normally, and we get to see how he sees the guys, with Dale being a conspiracy nut.
Yeah, man, you tell you what, a dang old detector, man, talk about government take away freedom of smoke, man, tell you.
Yeah, he's not really wrong there, followed by Hank complaining about Bobby, which, to be fair, isn't too far off target, because Hank does claim Bobby ain't right enough that it became a catchphrase.
Hey, man, I'll tell you what, man, the dang old boy ain't right, man. I'm gonna talk about it, kicking them dang old ass, man. I don't know.
Then, after hearing Boomhauer speak normally for the only time in the series, we get to see how he sees Bill, and I can't help but notice that he has Bill only eating one pizza, and he views Bill as being thinner than he actually is. Though in his version, the fire was Bill's fault for leaving the toaster oven on.
And keep it down, guys, will you? I'm trying to get through an article on vintage Camaros, and I've been on the same dang page for 20 minutes.
Dang old pretty pizza, I tell you what.
Also, that could be a reference to Pretty Dresses. Bill denies leaving the oven on, and we see his version where he views himself as not only totally bald, but also significantly heavier. Oh, and he eats the pizza like he's in a pie-eating contest. Then he toasts a marshmallow over an open flame that he leaves burning. He also adds in the fact that he saw Dale switching tanks with Hank, and when Dale explains why, it makes total sense.
You're the only real fireman among us. I saw your tank was running low. Mine was full, and And I knew you'd need every molecule of oxygen to carry our charred bodies out of that raging inferno.
So it could have been Dale's cigarette, Boomhauer's tanning lamp, or Bill leaving the stove on. But Hank claims that it wasn't any of them. He tells his version, which is probably the closest to the truth, where he put out Dale's cigarette, turned off the tanning lamp and stove, all of which is rather Hank-like, hence why I figure it's the truth. But as he was pulling the engine out of the station, he saw the Alamo beer sign lit up in his rearview mirror, and he knew exactly who plugged it in and who was responsible for causing the fire.
And I'll tell you who that somebody had to be. That somebody had to be...
Well, I did.
Chet Elderson.
I did not. Chet Elderson.
Yep. Hank blamed the fire on Chet Elderson, the dead man that can't defend himself, the man that the fire station was named after. But he lied in order to cover for Dale, since we all saw Dale plug that sign in after Chet Elderson's funeral. And so did all the other guys, but Dale and Bill go along with it. Again, to keep Dale out of trouble, both of them laying all the blame on Chet for plugging the sign in the last time he was there.
Chet Elderson must have plugged that sign in the last time he was at the station. What a moron. May he rest in peace. Right, Bill?
Right. Yeah, that sounds like Chet.
And probably my favorite gag from this entire episode is the fact that Boomhauer is totally against what the guys are doing. And he straight up tells the chief that they were lying and that Dale did it.
Tell you what, man, old gold dragging old Dad Chet's name through the mud, man, old Dale's one who did it, man. You know, leave old Chet alone, man.
But the chief doesn't understand him and thinks he's just agreeing with the guys.
So each and every one of you believes that Chet Elderson started that fire.
So the chief buys their story, but because he doesn't want to sully Chet's name and reputation, good going there, Chief, Hank suggests that they just call it an electrical fire, and the chief decides to go that route. He tells the guys that they're free to go, and Bill brings up that a local woman is looking for some plumbers, which Hank is at first against, but he warms up to the idea.
Well, I heard Mrs. Throckmorton's looking to hire 4 plumbers.
No.
It's all the beer we can drink.
Okay, I could use a beer.
The guys becoming plumbers is of course a nod to A Plumbing We Will Go, the Three Stooges short that the episode is named after, where the Stooges pretend to be plumbers in order to avoid the law. And to put the icing on the cake as the episode fades out, we hear Three Blind Mice playing, which was the second and probably best known theme song used by the Three Stooges. But, of course, we can't forget about Peggy and her quest to lift Bobby without pulling her groin. And we see a short montage of Peggy training during the credits to do so before accomplishing the feat at the end, then just kind of dropping Bobby like a sack of potatoes.
Oh, yeah!
So, this episode is very much a love letter to not just the Three Stooges, but also the whole early film comedy genre, and the mostly vaudeville performers that established what comedy films would be. If you've never watched any of the older comedies, the stuff with, the Three Stooges, or the Marx Brothers, or Fatty Arbuckle, or Buster Keaton, I highly recommend them, partially because these were people that truly saw comedy as art. And there's an interesting way that these performers would act silly or slapstick, but at the same time hold a respect for the seriousness of comedy. This episode takes several situations that seem completely absurd, but at the same time they're totally believable. I could see that funeral scene going down the way it did, or Dale being stubborn and insisting on plugging in the Alamo beer sign, if for no other reason than Hank said not to, knowing full well that it could, and did, burn the whole station down. The comedy in this episode is exactly what made the show great. The jokes were character-based and they all made sense. Everyone acted exactly as you would expect, and the comedy from those in-character interactions isn't just highly entertaining, it's the bread and butter of the entire series. It's absurd, but it's realistic. And if someone wanted to know why King of the Hill was so great, this would be one of the episodes I'd tell them to watch. Thanks for watching, folks. We'll see you next time.
What about the rest of you guys? You interested?
He talking about firemen, man. They talking about Rampart 51, Rampart 51. Oh, no, dang old emergency, man. I got on shows on tape, man. I love that.
Fact. Volunteer firemen receive sirens for their personal vehicles. Fact. And we can use them whenever we want. Fact.